I'm doing it a whole step. You can do it a half step, but why would you do that when you could just earball the half step if you need it? You know what I mean? Just don't bend it all the way through. Just listen for it. There's it's close. There's closer. So I'm in the right direction. All right, I'm no expert on this thing yet, but I'm hoping to be. But this is really exciting innovation of the guitar, and the legend has it that Clarence and Gene and all those guys with the Byrds were in the studio, and Clarence was going through a guitar part that he wanted to bend a note so bad, but all his other fingers were tied up because he was a musical genius. If he'd had 8 fingers on each hand, he could have found something to do with each of them simultaneously. So he had Gene behind him with his finger on this nut right here. When he'd hit that one chord, he'd push down on it like that until it went in the key. And then they were sitting around, he's like, you know what, we can figure something out for this. So they put their brains together, all 3 brain cells between them, and they went and took a bender off of a pedal steel, and they installed it on the guitar, and they built out of the guitar. They didn't carve into the Tele body, and they glued on and built a little outcropping, if you will, and they put all the guts and stuff in there. And Marty Stewart has that guitar to this day. It's fantastic. I mean, no other one sounds quite as good as that one does, and Marty destroys it. He's so awesome. And so that was when the Clarence White B-Bender was born. And when the Byrds would play after that, they said they would always notice this huge crowd over there on Clarence's side. They ended up calling it the Wall of Guitar Players, because it was like literally every guitar player within 10 counties was there trying to figure out how the hell Clarence White was getting that guitar to sound like that. And with Clarence's untimely death in 1973, where he was run over by a drunk driver, a Japanese diplomat with diplomatic immunity that just hopped on a plane and went to Japan and she never even went to court for it. It was a travesty of the music world, because Clarence was getting ready to be world famous. I mean, he was already considered by people that had any sense to be one of the best guitar players in that genre. He would have been in the Hendrix Pantheon for sure, all the rock guys. So the B-Bender was pretty much forgotten about for a while, and then Marty winds up going to Clarence's wife, and you know, you can see the story on. I'm probably fucking it up, but the gist of it is he told her that anything she had that she wanted to sell from what he had. I think she contacted him actually. He said he put his checkbook out and she could put anything within reason in there. And he said, if it wasn't within reason, I'll go to the bank and get it anyway.
Yeah, so, my mom works at a bank.
So he wound up with the original one.
For $1,200.
Something like that. I think he got that and the Strat for $1,600.
What's that guitar worth today?
One string off of it was worth $1,600. But Marty really has learned how to rip that thing to shreds. He's amazing. I went to one of his concerts and I was unaware of any of this, but I know Clarence from bluegrass more than I do from the Byrds. And as soon as the show was over, Mark Shimmick, when he found out I was there, said, "Did you see Clarence's guitar?" And right when he said it, it dawned on me. I was like, "Damn, that is the guitar!" And he was telling the crowd that we can come backstage and see it and check it out, and I had no idea, and we left. So I felt like an idiot for that. But Marty's a class act in every way. He puts on the best show of anybody ever. And since Marty's been making that guitar famous, then, you know, Fender's been making them for years, but not a whole lot of people knew about them. But he's made it more mainstream to where, you know, everybody wants one now. And this is a 2008 Fender Nashville Telecaster. And I love it. It's awesome. It adds the middle pickup, which most Teles don't have. And people will complain about a Tele seeming to be a little bit one-dimensional sometimes. They don't clean up as well as Stratocasters do. Because Stratocaster is an innovation of guitar. After the Tele was first, the Strat was perfection. That's my opinion. So this is a fantastic guitar. I really like it because with the middle pickup, it gives you a little more depth to your sound, a little more diversity, some different tones you can get. I wouldn't mind switching this one with that one because Marty's has got a Strat pickup on the neck, and you're never going to get his sound without it because that is the sound. You know, they traded this lipstick pickup right here, which are great Tele pickups, but they traded it for a Stratocaster right there. You'll see if you look at the guitar. I might just switch them one day just to see what the difference is. Because you're never going to get the sound he gets on the neck pickup unless you have a Strat pickup, because they don't sound like these pickups. These neck pickups sound good, but they don't clean up like a Strat does. The Strat gives you the prettiest clean tone ever. Tele's hot. People don't realize that. Tele's hotter than the Strat. learning this thing. I still feel clumsy as hell with using it. But it's a great thing. It really is. It adds another dimension to your playing, especially really for rhythms in the background. People swear they hear a pedal steel and they think they've gone crazy because there ain't one there.
Well, now show us that.
Oh yeah, this next
Show us that one and
okay.
tell tell whoever ends up watching this your guitar building story.
Yeah, this is for the millions of people that are going to watch our video.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you guys, next time it's probably going to be pay-per-view, but we'll try to make it as cheap as possible. And this is my assistant, my bone-headed son Abraham. He's going to hold that so we don't drop it on the floor. All right, this guitar here, I call this the baby doll, because that's what it is. It's a baby doll. And one night, me and my wife were having some beverages in my workshop, and my wife is the loveliest lady you'll ever see. That's why he's good looking and I'm ugly, because he got her genes in him. And I told her that I was going to make a guitar and I was going to model it after her. So I didn't make her take her clothes off yet. No, I'm kidding. She was going to kill me now. But anyway, I took a piece of MDF because I like to make my templates so if I accidentally make something nice that's my own, I can actually reproduce it. So I told her I was going to make a guitar after her. She must have been mad at me that night and I was kissing her ass or something, but it worked out really well because I come up with that drawing and I made a template, and then I finally made it come to life, and it's got really Telecaster hardware. I know that's so innovative. I know you don't think about that, but I like it. It's got a It's got a walnut back,
Let's see the
curly
neck.
maple top. The neck has got a Purple Heart fretboard, and it's got some of the prettiest curly maple I've ever seen in my life on the back.
How do you carve that neck?
I carve that neck with a rasp set, and I get it from. I usually get rough wood, and I'll use my table saw to cut it into into rectangular chunks, and then I go to work with it with my rasp set. My Japanese rasp is my favorite one to work with. And about
How much of it's done by hand? The neck.
everything except the only thing that wasn't done is it wasn't cut from the template is to get the actual shape, so it goes into the neck pocket good. And once that's done, once it's roughed out with the bandsaw, with the line left, then I'll use my template just to get this general shape. But I couldn't on this one because this is a new design, this headstock.
And the fretboard comes from just a chunk of wood.
The fretboard will come from a piece of wood that I've finally figured out what my optimum width should be on it, which was a lot of trial and error involved, in order to make it the correct height to jive well with my how I like my bridge. And then it took a while to figure out how to do it and how to get them nice, but after a bunch of clunking and a bunch of shitty ones, I finally got my formula down really well, and I can crank these out quick. And I put my radius on with a piece of sandpaper that's put to a piece of wood that I'll either buy or get my buddy Clint to make, since he's a wizard with the CNC stuff. And I do that by hand. And then I have some little jig blocks that I make sure you can't see any light through. A lot of people will think it's right before it's right, because I've done it myself. But you got to make sure there ain't zero light coming through. And once you do that, that will ensure that these frets won't be up just a tad on the edges. They'll be perfectly seated, and that way you can get the sharp points off. And you won't. My fingers, you couldn't lay my finger up with a razor blade if you tried. But for some child or a female who I had this guitar in mind for, this is a girly guitar, I ain't gonna lie. That's why I call it the baby doll. I see women playing this. In fact, the future owner of this is a lady that I play with, and she's a very nice lady too. She plays very well and sings. And so once you get that radius down absolutely perfect, and you double checked, and when I say perfect, I mean perfect. Once you get it there and you get your frets installed, you'll have a really, really, really nice neck.
No super glue.
No super glue. I started off using super glue, but they look messier when you have super glue, because CA glue is a son of a biscuit to get off. And even if you do get it off, you've put some more scratches in it, getting it off. Because acetone, they say acetone is a solvent for that, and to an extent it is, but go ahead and try it and see how well it works out for you.
But you get no dead frets, even though there's
Zero
no
dead
super.
frets. And that's due to the fact that I'm very, very diligent about how my radius comes out. Everything depends on the perfection of your radius. Once you get that perfected, then you know you're going to be fine. And I got a fret bender, because I don't use my frets pre-bent anymore. I use a fret bender, and they don't have a marking, a way to gauge on a fret bend. So the first time I got it, I actually drew the circle, and then I kept turning it down a little bit, turning it down a little bit, turning it down a little bit, until I got to the exact radius that I needed, which is how you work those. And because you can't have a marking system on it because it's going to be different if you're using jumbo fret wire, medium fret wire, or standard fret wire. So you're definitely going to have 4 different ones. So you got to find the right spot. So I'll bend my frets to a 9.5 degree radius, and I'll put them in with the arbor.
You have to have a different saw for each fret size.
No, I use no, because the fret size remains the same on the
For the notch.
yes,
Or
sir.
whatever it is.
And so I use that. It's called the tang. The fret tang is the part that goes down in there and has tiny little barbs on the sides. And I have found a Japanese back saw that works very well, and I've stuck with it. And whenever it gets dull, I'm going to get one just like it because it's the perfect width for my frets. And so, because like I said, a lot of people use super glue, but I'm against it and one of the reasons they do use super glue is because sometimes they'll get their depth. All right, imagine trying to put a straight. Your saw is not curved. So imagine trying to, you put your slots in it before you've radiused it, and your dots too, because that makes your dots look so much better. I've forgotten to put mine in a couple times, and they come out and foul, and they never look as good. This way, when you do it this way, they get radiused along with the fretboard itself. So imagine having an unradiused fretboard, and you're trying to saw into it where it will perfectly accommodate a future radiused fret. All right, if you go a little too deep, you're going to have what they call a dead fret. And a dead fret is when you're going to need some super glue. And it's always going to look messier than if you didn't have it. But the reason you don't want a dead fret is because it's going to sound like crap on that fret, because there's going to be some space between that fret and between the wood, and that little space is going to deaden that fret. So through trial and error, I have found the absolute perfect depth to saw into the width of the fretboard that I've decided on. Everybody does this different because you arrive at your conclusions your own way.
Hey, there's a black switch on the back of that thing. It'll just turn it off to shut that humming up.
On the very back.
Just right there where that piece of black plastic is against the wall.
Foot's completely asleep.
Oh, nice. I'm glad. So mine fall asleep. That doesn't mean just.
Just the top black switch.
So
Over here.
Yeah.
each guitar builder is going to diverge significantly from what other people are doing. That's why it's so hard to get good information on. You're not going to become a luthier by watching YouTube videos, because it's too much of a personal journey of you screwing up so much stuff and beating your head on the wall so many times that you know for a fact the way you do it is right, because the proof is in the pudding. If the pudding tastes good, you did something right.
How many necks have you used for kindling?
How many necks have I put in the fireplace? Quite a few. I believe my room is still warm because of the ones that my friends could not believe it. I started sawing up a whole guitar one time.
Most people don't realize what a perfectionist you are. They'd have to sort of get to know your style of making everything.
That's why I can't have a partner, because every time I have a partner, I throw them in the fire, they lose their minds. But I was sitting at the house one night, and I had worked on this body, and it just was not coming out right. This is when I was first learning shit. So I go to the bandsaw and I cut it this way, and they're like, "Oh, he's gonna put an inlay in it in the middle. That's so cute." And then I cut it this way, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Watch what I'm doing." I threw each piece in the fire. I had them suckers jumping in the fire to get it out. I was like, "No, it's gone." I was like, "And when it's gone, I don't want to ever see it again." And the best way to never see it again, because I don't want to be reminded of it. So the best way to never see it again is to destroy it, to turn it into ash. You know, and that's what I do. That's my personal way in it.
Most people don't realize too how fast you'll jerk up a piece of wood and it becomes a neck.
Oh yeah, now I can, and it's because I beat my head against the wall so many times. I've told Clint I'll challenge him to a neck off any day of the week. He can use the CNC and I'll do mine by hand. Because I'm getting to the point where I can get it done in less than an hour. I've got a video on YouTube on my Bud Wormy YouTube channel. Type in Bud Wormy and you'll see me do a Telecaster neck with stop motion. And I can do them in one sitting in less than an hour, and they look great. And the only guides I will have is one half moon that I've made for the first fret, and then another half moon guide for the 12th fret. And then once you get those right, then you just eyeball fill in the connect the dots and make sure it looks straight and make sure it feels good. And
what kind of complicated jig does it take to put in the truss rod?
Well, they say that it takes this house that they build for it. You have to go to a separate school just to learn how to build that jig. Yeah, and I think it's about $400 worth of wood, and oh yeah, you got to have a degree from MIT. But I never understood why they were doing all that and making all that fuss about it, so I decided just to use regular Mortison pins on my router. Just 2 little pins. They cost about $1 a piece, and you put them on each side of your router, and that ensures that your bit is traveling in the middle. And I just do mine that way. It seems like to me I can do 10 in an amount of time that you can even.
Seems like it's working.
Oh, it works perfect every time. It can't not work perfect because if those pins are the same size and they're just equidistant, and every router's got slots, screw slots that are equidistant from that bit. Every one you buy from the store, right out the gate, you ain't got to tap no holes, you ain't got to do nothing. And then you go get you one of those cheap kits from what do they call those ones you get from Lowe's? The ones that are made out of plastic. It's like a certain brand. Like you get the jigs for like hinges, templates. I can't remember.
Craig?
Not Craig's, the cheaper one than that. All of it's plastic. You can get little kits from. Craig's stuff is pretty good too. But anyway, that's even where I get my carving bits from because you can't find a pattern bit that's short enough to where you don't have to take too much out the first time. Because when you got a template right against the wood and you got a bit that's a ½ inch, that means that you've got to go all the way down to your bearing is riding on that, which is right next to it. So if you try to you can't go a ½ inch. You can do a 1/4 inch if you're careful and you sharpen your bit well. And then even if it's a little messy, you're going to go deeper anyway. It's going to cover up all the mess. So I get those out of those little cheap hinge. That's my hack for that. Those little hinge mortising sets have got one of the bits in it that just happens to work perfect for this. They cost $17.
Little short cutter with the bearing on top.
Correct. And so that's my hack for that. I got 20 of the hinge mortising kits in the house now because even if you were to find one, you'd pay 5 times more than $17 for the damn thing, probably at least 3 times more. And so why do that when you could just buy another hinge kit? You already got and I've learned how to sharpen mine, so you can sharpen probably about 10, 15 times before they actually.
What do you do? Just put it on a diamond plate?
No, I take a credit card sharpener I bought from what's the name of the place?
I think you just broke it.
There's a place online that you get Infinity Tools.
Yeah.
And they make the credit card sharpener that you use, and one side's 300, and that's for high-speed steel, and one side's 600, that's for your you know what I'm talking about, carbide.
I'm gonna set this out because we'll forget to talk about it before you leave.
No, that's okay. This glass is costing nothing. Plus, I don't have to see. I got you. So,
we got to talk about this.
That's the company right there that I use. That's the way I get my credit card sharpener from. And you got to know how to do it, or it'll never work right. It's a nice ass bit.
You know what that goes to? Your shaper.
Oh yeah.
We haven't got to that part yet.
So this guitar came out really. That's the nasty because that's the bridge. It cleans up pretty good though. Yeah, this one came out very, very good. I'm really proud of this guitar. It is a prototype, however, so usually for my prototypes I find a friend that I love deeply and I let him get it for next to nothing. Because maybe one day I won't have to tune the. Oh no, the tuners are different.
I took one to Atlanta and gave it to a friend. So
yeah, I got to tell them why this headstock looks like this. The reason why the headstock looks like this is because I ordered this wood from Canada as a rectangular rough cut neck blank that was advertised as a neck blank. So I didn't really plan on it, and the neck blank needs to be like 28 inches. This one was 2 inches too short. And I was so excited about getting the neck made, so I was in the process of sending a nasty, nasty letter to this about how they need to stop false advertisement, learn what a neck blank needs to be and all this. And then I thought to myself, let's not do that. Let's just design another headstock that doesn't need to be 2 inches longer. So what I came up with is this little side sucker here, and I love the way it looks. It's a good design feature in my opinion. So I came up with this headstock, and people seem to like it. So, but what I just did, that's not your E-tuner anymore. And you'll reach up there and out of habit and try to tune that when you're actually tuning your beat. So that's what I just did. See, I just took it out. I almost did it again. I went for that one. And then my E is going to be here. And I didn't even need a string tree on it because I did my slotting right. I do these by hand too. This is about the toughest part of the whole thing right here is getting the nut right. But mine's good. like I said, the proof, the way
Wayne Henderson carved his first one out of a dead cow, so
the way you're always going to know if you did the right thing is when you see a grin come across somebody's face that Ajax will not wipe off as soon as they put their hands around one of your necks, or as soon as they hear the sound of it, because you can't fake that. And I gotta say, when I first strung this one and played it, I played it for like 4 or 5 hours straight. If you want to play with some distorted tones on a guitar with single coils, which I highly prefer single coils over humbuckers. I'm probably the only person in the world that does. Probably not, but most of my friends don't understand that a single coil pickup is going to hum with a 60 hertz hum that it's getting out of every electrical device that it's close to. So in order for you to combat that hum, all singles are going to do it. Now, if you stick 2 singles together, you get a device that will now buck the hum, and they call it a humbucker because it will cancel out the hum. But to me, they sound sterile. I think that single coils sound. I think the noise that they generate is part of the character of the tone that gives it a better tone. So with a little bit of ingenuity and figuring out how to, all you got to do is roll your volume down a little bit. I mean, ooh, how hard is that? And to me, it just gives a much better. Like it has the distortion has much more character on a single coil than it does. See that? Hear that hum? Now, if you were to switch the way the pickup selector works on a standard telly, if it's all the way this way, if you've wired it correctly, then that'll be just this pickup which will hum. But when you switch it into the middle, now you got both of these and they're acting as a humbucker, they're canceling. So that's why if you're really nasty, if you've got some really nasty distortion, put it in the middle and it'll mitigate that. And the back is your now, if I were overdriven more than I am now, I'm not getting a hum at all now, then I would simply roll that back just a couple of, and that would go away instantly. So, trust me, the way Stevie Ray Vaughan got his sound, he wouldn't play with a humbucker. He would crank his amp to high hell, and he would turn his guitar down to about 60% volume. And that's why youngins can't get Stevie's sound. They don't understand how he's doing it. But that's how he's doing it. He's cranking the hell out of his on low output singles, and then he's just rolling the guitar volume back until all the noise is gone. And then he's getting his signature sound that rocked the entire planet, and that's how he's doing it. So, in my opinion, singles are just
about a quarter of the way through his biography on Audible. So
nice.
That's what I do while I'm in the shop.
Yeah, he was amazing. He was my first serious guitar study because it was the day he died. I was in high school and I was so into metal at the time. I didn't have time for a blues guitar player. They ain't a metal player. I didn't like bands with keyboards in them. Now I play keyboard because I just didn't. And the kids don't know much, That's what they really don't. I did. So the day
I may
he died,
put together a montage of your keyboard progress from on YouTube or on Facebook. I mean, the videos you posted, because it took you it started a player piano started it, didn't it?
It sure did. And that was given to me as a gift, and I didn't even know I was getting it. My cousin, rest his soul, he's gone now.
Didn't you play at his funeral? Was that the same one?
No, I didn't play his funeral, but I sent I played my cousin's funeral. That was my first public debut. I was 5 minutes late to a funeral. But they couldn't say that because I had to play guitar and piano, so that's okay.
He's only about 4 months late for every time he comes up here. So
this guitar right here is just wonderful. Plays so well. This is the Baby Doll. And
how many guitars have you built total now?
About 21.
Really?
Yeah, I've been getting
from the Jazzmaster till now, 21.
Now, a few of those wound up as ashes, but I still went through the motion to make them. So so I consider I'm about 20 or 21.
One that I took to Atlanta and gave to Daniel. What number was
That's
that?
probably about number 8 or 9. And that one came out wonderful. I wanted that guitar. I want everyone. I get jealous when people get my guitars. I don't want them to have them. I want them. And this.
Well, you break them in. I can.
Well, this finish here is the result of me wanting to commit suicide several times because I wanted that. And no, it's my wife's fault because my wife goes in Guitar Center with me one day and we get out to the car and she looks at me and goes, "Did you see the finish on that Paul Reed Smith? How come yours don't look like that?" And oh boy, when she said that, I was like, "Okay, it's on now."
Are you fading when you? Or is that faded when
Yes,
you're putting
sir.
the burst in there? Is that in the lacquer? Or is that in the?
It's in the lacquer, and I do the. This is just a one color burst, and this was my first burst actually, and I finally got my method down to a science because, like I said, everybody's method's gonna be. I don't wet sand.
Hey, before I forget this too, right there in that white cabinet, there's 2 things in a black jug. It's gonna be the only thing in a black jug in there. Get it out, and that flashlight right up there. He's gonna need that. I'm gonna cut the video off.